kind of the reason I was concerned, and I've been concerned about Brock Purdy is just you saw some picks get dropped that really would have changed the narrative. There was a lot of picks get dropped for whatever reason, and everybody needs luck. But if half of those picks, I mean, I counted probably 6 or 7 dropped interceptions. So if you had 3 more interceptions, would the story be different? I'm not sure, man. What are your thoughts on Brock Purdy? What's your honest
not
opinion?
really, right? Because right now, everyone's not tripping on his stats. It's just like you were the last pick in the draft. You played. You won. You were in the play. I guess it's as simple as that. But like, all that's valid. It was a storybook Cinderella type deal that he did, and you can't take it away from him. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to keep going that way for the rest of his career. It's a great start to his career. He also had a serious injury. But you have to remember, like, there were no tendencies on him. He comes in, and yeah, there's film on him in college, but you don't know how he's going to play in this offense. You don't know how Kyle's going to call plays for him. So that's an advantage he had. No tendencies. All of a sudden, that like roll left, no one sees it coming. No one knows where on the field he likes to throw, doesn't like to throw. Once he plays a lot, the same thing that happened to Jimmy is going to happen to him, where the scouting report becomes really good. And at the same time, the Niners know how to work around it. And you'll see after a year or two, if he's a starter, like they're going to reach the limit of what they can do with him. And it doesn't mean that they won't win a lot, but like, he is limited. And they're going to reach, they're going to have all of Kyle Shanahan's creativity and all these players around him and a great defense, but they're still going to be limited in what they can do because he's not an elite quarterback. He's not elite. He does not have an elite skill set. He's elite, in terms of his confidence and stuff, but there's going to be a limit, and that's, again, why the Niners mortgaged their future for a quarterback who might have fewer limits if developed correctly. That was the whole idea. So I feel like we're just doing the Jimmy Garoppolo story over again. It's going to have the same ending. It's just going to have a different adventure along the way with a different personality.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why, like, when I watched the film, I watched, both quarterbacks, every play they've ever taken on the 49ers, and it seems like the offense that's being called for Trey Lance is much different than the one being called for Brock Purdy. And a lot of Brock Purdy's passes were, great scheme by Kyle Shanahan. You get wide receivers wide open. When you're watching Trey Lance, it doesn't seem like those windows are there for whatever reason. I don't know if it's completely different play calling or what is it.
I got some. I mean, Brandon Ayuk said it himself. He said the Niners don't really have an identity on offense until about the bye week. Mm-hmm. Like, they come into the season, they don't really know what's going to work on offense yet. They kind of try the stuff that worked last year. Doesn't always work. And a lot of those guys weren't playing in training camp and preseason. So it takes them until about the bye week to figure out what they want to do, who they want to be on offense. And that's a huge thing. Like, identity on offense is huge. So with Trey, every appearance he's had in the NFL except for one has come before the bye week, when the Niners haven't had an identity on offense, don't know what they want to do, don't know how they want to attack. And any quarterback struggles under those circumstances. Jimmy struggled under those circumstances. When Brock played, he didn't have to deal with that. They'd figured out their identity. They were on a winning streak. He came in and kept it rolling. Trey, in the same circumstances the year before, played late in the year when the identity had been established. He played one game. Quarterback rating was 116.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he was elite, but he produced the same level of efficiency that Brock did. Again, it doesn't mean that Trey's elite. It doesn't mean that Brock's elite. But once the Niners offense gets healthy and gets that identity, like, the quarterback almost is along for the ride. And that's why I feel like people need to chill with Trey, because we've seen him mostly play early in the season when most quarterbacks struggle on this team.
100%, because that's the game where I'm watching, when I'm like focusing on the receivers and the throws that are being made. And Kyle is dialing up receivers open for Trey against the Texans. But all of his other games, it was very congested, tight window stuff. And then when I watched Brock play, it seemed like there was more of that open window plays. I mean,
his first start, he lived in the shotgun the whole game. He carried the ball more times than Elijah Mitchell, who had 9 carries. Like, Deebo Samuel hadn't become a running back yet. It was so not their identity. You watching that game like, what the hell is this? This is not the 49ers offense. Then later that year against Houston, like, all of a sudden they just put Trey Lance into the Brock Purdy, under center, play action, bootleg offense, and they won. Yeah. Now, you could say it was only Houston, but whatever. Like, there were games where Brock beat up on freaking Miami's terrible defense. Like all I care about is that's the best way to use Trey. It's been established. And once I'd like to see him in that offense more than one time before they just say, you know what, we have to settle for Brock. Because it is settling. Yeah. I don't care. Like Brock can play the best of his abilities, but there's still a limit there. Yeah, you're giving up on the guy who has a higher ceiling for no reason because he didn't perform well in some offense that wasn't your offense.
I mean, the reality is, unless you have a top 10 quarterback, you should always be looking. And I think most teams approach it that way. I don't know if Kyle does. I don't know if Kyle does, but I think most teams do. Kyle may just be fine with, can you run my offense the way I want it to be ran? Whereas I think most teams, if you're not top 10, if you don't got a top 10 guy, you're trying to find your top 10 guy.
Yeah, it's not just Kyle. I feel like it's been a York thing for 20 years. You know, like there was I was going back and I was looking at this offseason, this weekend. A lot of Niner fans don't remember. Bill Walsh came back to the team and was the vice president from 99 to 2000. Like when the Yorks, thank you. When the Yorks inherited this team and they got it handed to them by Eddie, like they had Jerry Rice, T.O., Steve Mariucci, and Jeff Garcia. And they got rid of Jerry Rice like immediately to save a little cap space. They got rid of Jerry Rice, Jeff Garcia, and T.O. and Steve Mariucci pretty quickly after that. Like they don't value what Bill Walsh built. They don't value it at all. And I think what Bill Walsh showed the league is that this is a quarterback league. Okay. Like, yeah, running back, defense, all that stuff is important to an extent, but it's all about the quarterback. And until you have, until you have a franchise quarterback, you're just spinning your wheels. You're not a legit Super Bowl contender. He proved that in 1981. Okay. And the Yorks, they're not from out here. They're from freaking Youngstown. Like Jed grew up watching the Bears. And so that family gets the team and they want to prove that, no, actually, it's a quarterback's just one of the guys. Yeah. Really? Are you sure about that? And that's why the Niners haven't, ever since they released Jeff Garcia, they haven't had a Pro Bowl quarterback since that day because the Yorks fundamentally don't understand what Walsh taught the rest of the football world 40 years ago. It's ridiculous.
So I learned when I watched that video, what's the name of the video that you made? What's the title of it? So I'm sure everyone's seen it, but you know what it is?
Let me look it up.
Because I watched that video and I had no idea that Bill Walsh is actually the guy responsible. I knew he was responsible for Montana and Steve Young, but he's also responsible for Garcia. I didn't realize that. So like he's the only one that's found a franchise quarterback for this team. I mean, prior to my birth, like a long time ago.
It's called Why the Niners Haven't Had a Franchise Quarterback the Past 20 Years.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't, I'm sure you all have, but if you haven't watched that video, because it definitely kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I mean, I was aware of the problem, but I didn't realize that Walsh got all three of those guys. And when you take Walsh out of it, the 49ers have not found a franchise quarterback, a Pro Bowl quarterback, nothing. And it's been when did Garcia's last season was 2002? So it's been 21 years and the whole time it was under the Yorks. They've been unable to find a franchise quarterback. Now, maybe Brock and Trey will become that. Shit, maybe Sam Darnold will. But, I mean, it's just based on the track record, the history. There's really no reason for us to have confidence that they have.
Yeah, I mean, real quick. So Walsh was the vice president of this team in 99 and 2000. 99, they bring in Garcia's 29. 2000, he starts. He's 30, okay? He throws for almost 4,300 yards and 31 touchdowns. Like, when Niner quarterbacks don't do that anymore. And that year, like that was his first year as a freaking starter in the NFL. He had T.O. and Jerry Rice. Next year, Jerry Rice is gone. It's like, Yorks, and not only is Jerry Rice gone, Walsh is gone. Walsh it gets pushed out. They make him a consultant. And he tries to act like he was, he wanted to retire. No, they pushed him out because they wanted to control the team, brought in Terry Donahue, who brought in Parag Marathe. And here we are. We are.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Rice goes and signs with the Raiders a 4-year deal for like $7 million and then has 2 more like 1,000-yard seasons.
Didn't Terry Donahue come from UCLA?
Yeah, he's shameful. Jeff Garcia that year in 2000, he was like the best quarterback in the league. You put his numbers up against anyone. The only guy who came close to his numbers was like Peyton Manning. He put up better numbers that year than Kurt Warner. He put up better numbers that year than Brett Favre, way better numbers than Donovan McNabb. Like, they had something, and the Yorks inherited it. They got rid of Walsh. They got rid of Mariucci. They replaced Mariucci with Dennis Erickson. It was like, they got rid of T.O. and Jeff Garcia in the same year. Yeah. And, oh, man, I mean, this is ancient history, but it's like, it's the same crew. Yeah. And we're always trying to give them an idea. Like, hey, they've had some rough times, but they've figured it out now. Really? Like, really? They're playing The Bachelor in their quarterback room. Like, someone's going to get a rose at the end of this offseason.
Yeah. I took a survey on, like, which quarterback will not play this year. And then there was also the option was all three of them will play. But Sam Darnold was the one.
I'd have to bet on all of them playing, man. I mean, at this rate, Brandon Allen's going to be on the field.
Hey, man, never count out Brandon Allen, man. I'm interested. What if he goes perfect again on OTAs tomorrow? What does that
He's
mean?
Putting the pressure on. Everyone's talking about the quarterback competition between Trey and Darnold. What about the competition between Allen and Darnold?
Yeah,
Allen's putting pressure on him. Darnold's over here hesitating with the second team.
I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but I honestly thought about it. Crossed my mind, like, this dude, he'd be much cheaper than Sam Darnold. What if he plays better in OTAs? I mean, I doubt it.
Here's my impression of Sam Darnold. Like, throw the ball! Yeah. Throw the ball! Oh, pick one! What are you doing?
Is this the first time that impression's been done on camera? Because I feel honored if it is. Have you done that?
I mean, because Jimmy was the guy patting the ball. Like, Sam's the guy, like, about to throw. He keeps, like, separating his hands, like, nah, just throw it. What are you waiting for? Brandon Allen is not hesitating. I don't understand.
Can we touch?
Sorry,
on
Sam.
The fact that, can you touch on the fact that you just did that on my show, and I'm really appreciative because you made the Jimmy Garoppolo impression famous for years. So now,
thanks.
Is this the first time you've done it on camera?
I guess that. Yeah, I didn't think about it.
Super chats for that moving forward, right?
Hopefully. Waiver wire says it's true. Yeah, waiver wire.
We got a super chat from Mui. Purdy has an interception problem, second in the league in interception worthy passes. If they weren't dropped, different narrative, but people were pretending we didn't know. So I didn't know that. Is that true? Because
I didn't know that either. We'd have to clarify that. I mean, not clarify, but confirm, because that's serious. But believe it, man. He had some 50-50 ones. There was one. Was it against the Raiders where he's rolling left, gets hit, almost like he got hit against Philly? The ball pops up in the air and Ayuk catches it. Like, there are a few of those.
What if we lost to the Raiders and we were close? I was watching the game, 34-34, 20 seconds left. Brock Purdy rolls out. I don't know who it was, but the left guard pulled, missed a block. They hit Purdy. It kind of almost looked like the Eagles throw. They hit him while he was throwing it. Flies up in the air, and luckily Ayuk went and got it. But that could have been an interception. 49ers could have lost to the Raiders. It was very close.
That's why people keep saying, like, the Niners would have beaten the Eagles. Like, hold on. Like, they almost lost to the Raiders. Okay. They beat the Seahawks, who weren't that good. I mean, the Cowboys essentially beat themselves. I'm not so sure the Niners would have beaten the Eagles if they played again and Purdy hadn't messed up his elbow. Like, they made it real interesting with the Raiders. And I want to bring up one thing that no one's really talked about this offseason, but I think we all know it's true. I have a question. I'll put it like this. Phrase it as a question. What the hell happened to Nick Bosa at the end of last season?
Disappeared. Was he hurt?
He disappeared. Why?
Yeah, I don't
He's
know.
a great player. What happened? Was he injured? What happened? No one ever told us that. I'd love to know.
I wonder. Yeah, that is a good question.
He just wasn't the same guy down the stretch. Another reason I wasn't really sold on them winning the Super Bowl, even if Purdy hadn't gotten injured. Where was Bosa?
I wonder. I did notice a lot.
Tired? Injured? I don't know.
Were they blocking him different, or was it they treated him the same?
I don't even know. It was going on. It started in December, I want to say. Like, he was on this. He was going to break the record, I thought. And then all of a sudden, he was getting a sack a game, and all of a sudden, he went on like a drought for weeks. It was like, I mean, you're allowed to go on a drought, but it's just he was so consistent. And then all of a sudden, it was like, boom, it's over. I don't understand.
If the 49ers lose to the Raiders, I don't think people are in very, very close. This conversation is different.
You lose to Stidham, no one's taking you seriously as a Super Bowl contender. Yeah. But to think about it, they lost to Mariota and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. So,
and that's why I tell people to just hold on. I mean, shit, man. Like, people talk shit about Geno Smith, but he had a phenomenal year last year and played much better overall. I mean, not against the Niners, but you look at his whole season, his
You
statistics.
look at his numbers.
It's the best since Steve Young. He played better than Garcia. He did what Garcia did, but he had 6% better in
I
completion.
know. Now, what I want to say about Garcia that people don't realize, 20 years ago, people weren't completing 70% of their passes all the time. Like Garcia in 2000 completed 63.3% of his passes. Like that was among the best in the league.
Yeah.
Like Peyton Manning wasn't completing higher than that, and neither was Tom Brady. He was different back then. Just want to point that out.
But that's what makes Steve Young so great. I mean, he's done it. He was hitting 70%.
He was doing that in the 90s.
The 90s. Yeah.
Montana wasn't doing that. He completed 70% one time. I was looking at Montana's numbers, man.
Kind of mediocre.
They're not as good as you think. It's crazy. He never threw for 4,000 yards in a season. Never. And he played 16 games twice.
And what was his highest completion percentage? Was it like
70? I think he did 70 in 1989, which was remarkable.
Did he
remarkable.
Really?
I think he did. In 1990 or 1989, one of those two. Remarkable. But he was not a prolific passer. People be like, well, he was great in the playoffs. Yeah, not in 85, not in 86, not in 87.
Yeah.
He just won those 4 Super Bowls. Legend, for sure. But if people were to say, you know what, Steve might have been better, you can make the argument so easily. It's like, okay, well, Steve didn't win 4 Super Bowls. Yeah, well, Joe didn't have to deal with that Cowboys team, man. That Cowboys team was among the best teams ever.
At their peaks, I'm giving it to Steve Young. But if you look at a career, it's Joe Montana. But at their peaks, I'm giving it to Steve Young, man. Saying
Steve was
people hate
bigger, more mobile, statistically more accurate.
Yeah.
Statistically more accurate.
Stronger arm.
So where is Joe better? Like intangibles. I'm sorry. I was born in 88, and Steve Young was my favorite player. So I'm biased here.
Yeah.
I didn't even really watch Joe play, and I looked up to Steve Young like as much as I looked up to my dad, if not more. Okay? So this is I'm not a reliable narrator here, but still, dude, you can make the argument.
Yeah.
You can make the argument.
I mean, I think it's at their peaks. I don't think it's really it's not even a competition, if I'm being honest, right? It was really not. He's more accurate, stronger arm, mobile. What else do you need? I mean, but Joe Montana was just a winner over his career.
And again, people be like, "Oh, well, Steve wasn't as great in the playoffs." Like, man, I mean, he had some tough games against the freaking Cowboys, and then later on Brett Favre and the Packers. But again, go back and look at what Montana did between 84 and 88. Like 3 consecutive first-round exits where they scored like 3 points. Yeah. Like there was a reason they brought in Steve Young when they did. Let's say that. It wasn't going so well for Joe.
Let me ask you a direct question in regards to Brock. What is Brock good at?
What is Brock good at? Oh, there's a lot that Brock's good at. Yeah. Brock is really good at reacting on the field. Like, I had a throwing coach named Austin Carter Samuels, played at Vanderbilt, came on my show, and he had a distinction I thought was genius. He said a lot of people on the field process information, quarterbacks, like, 16 times 17. You could process that. You could do the math in your head. Brock reacts, and that's what you want. It's rare. Not that many athletes can do it, and that's why the ones that can, it looks like the game moves slower for them. Yeah. So you got to give him credit for that. I love the way he extends plays. I love the confidence he plays with, the creativity he has, like the way he can change speeds when he scrambles, the way he high steps on guys. He plays with a ton of confidence. He has big hands. He can pump fake the ball. Like he can do a lot of stuff off script that I didn't expect at all when they drafted him. I thought he was like Nick. They thought he was Nick Mullins. So all that stuff is crazy. And then as a thrower, he's okay. Is all I can really say. Like his mechanics are fine. His arm strength was decent. His accuracy is cool. Like he probably puts the ball. You don't really want him thrown into tight windows. Period. He doesn't have the arm for it, but he doesn't really have to very much in this team. His arm is underwhelming. Can we be honest? But everything about him is great. Like his demeanor, his professionalism, his maturity, his escapability. Love all of that. But his arm is like, dude, it might not be good enough, especially now that he messed up his UCL. So he might be the best backup quarterback in the league, or he could be, I don't know, a really good starter, I guess.
And the thing is, like a lot of people, they try to say, Joe Montana had a weak arm. Well, He didn't have a
Not as
Steve
weak as
Young,
Brock. Not
but
as
it
weak
was
as
not
Brock.
as weak as Brock at all.
Not as
Like,
weak as Brock.
go watch the
Joe
tape.
Montana was the third round pick.
I actually went back because you're hearing this a lot. I'm like, I don't remember it that way. Let me go look at some highlights. Like, let me see some deep passes from Joe Montana, and it's nothing that we've seen from Brock Purdy yet.
No, go back and
Cam,
watch the 1981 NFC Championship game against the Cowboys. Like Joe was firing the ball down the field left and right in that game.
Yeah, and the
25.
most ridiculous one is Tom Brady had a weak arm. He has I think 4 of the deepest passes on record in the NFL. One of them was like 73 yards in the air. So this narrative that Tom Brady had a weak arm is so false. It's absurd. He has 3 of the top 10 deepest passes on record in the NFL.
Yeah.
One of them was 73 yards in the air.
Yeah, he didn't fall to the 6th round because of his arm. He fell to the 6th round because of his physique and his mobility or lack of it. And then
he didn't play a lot.
He didn't play a lot. Like they kept trying to put Drew Henson on the field, who was like the number 1 recruit in the country. And Brock Purdy played a ton. It wasn't like, well, Iowa State didn't like him and they're trying to play another quarterback. Like, no, everyone saw Brock Purdy for 4 years. His stock steadily got worse the longer he played in college. Like, he turned the ball over a lot. He's really small. His arm is really not strong. Like, there's a lot of reasons he fell as far as he did. And the fact that he exceeded expectations does show that he's better than people said. He's more athletic than people said. He's more confident than people said. And he reacts very well in the field. But also, look at the team he's on, dude. Look at the freaking team he's on. Are you kidding? If he was on any other team, he wouldn't have this aura around him. Sorry.
Yeah,
same thing with Jimmy. Let's see what happens to Jimmy the rest of his career. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I want to see I want the 49ers to have a quarterback that elevates the players around him. Now, he did well, and he ran the offense well, and they scored better than Jimmy by far. But I want to
elevate him.
Yeah, the people around him are elevating. It's been that way for a while for 49ers quarterbacks. I want that to change. I want it to be
even Cap. Even Cap, like, he was great, but I wouldn't say he was great. He was very good, but he was on a rookie contract. That team was phenomenal. He had a great offensive line all the way across.
Yeah.
Like, the Niners haven't had a dude that made other guys better since, again, I thought Jeff Garcia was on that level. A lot of people, maybe I'm romanticizing my childhood, but I felt that if you put Jeff Garcia, I don't want to talk about Jeff Garcia all day, but if you put him on the Rams and took Kurt Warner off that team, they wouldn't have taken a step back. Yeah. They wouldn't have taken a step back. You put him on the Eagles with Andy Reid and taking Donovan McNabb off that team, they would have been even better.